Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation, Market Failures. This is for the housing bubble of 2008-2009. My name is Octavio Ramirez Lopez. This is for class MPA 585 Political Economy for Dr. David C. Powell at California Baptist University. Okay, so this is just a little progression of how the externalities of the housing bubble happened. So it first initiated was not, I don't see how it started by the government, but there was some deregulation. It first started when the federal government passed the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977, where it kind of promoted the banks to lend money to minorities and populations in order to have them buy their own housing. So it moved on to the bankers, providing all these loans to different people, and it began to a lot of them were subprime borrowers, which is those who have really poor credit and tend to default on their loans. So they were giving loans to these people. Also, a lot of these loans didn't have fixed interest rates, so the interest rate will fluctuate depending on the economy, and so that's gonna come up a little later in my presentation, but that's how it first started. So in the next picture is just how like the lenders were making money out of this loan. So they were kind of were um, mortgage backed securities. They were selling mortgage backed securities. They were selling all these loans to other investors, and there's a lot of liquidity being produced by all this lending to different people and making money with these loans or these high interest rates being paid to these lenders in order for them to reinvest that money, keep the money moving. Okay, so the housing market started to inflate. There was this bubble growing and growing and growing by the houses, increasing in value, liquidity being available from all this lending with different collaterals investments. So it just became to be built up and built up in an unstable foundation. So as those mortgages were given to people who could not really afford them, to the subprime borrowers, and also this money was invested with other investors. So it became very unstable when the the interest rates increase, as most of these mortgages were not on fixed interest rates, and then there's not real regulations. So pretty much this mortgages were given to people left and right, whether they could afford them or not. So unfortunately, with the rise of interest rates, this borrowers could not pay their mortgages back. So, and the banks were not willing to refinance, as they were also struggling since they had other investments going on. So they had to pay their liabilities on the other investments. So they were kind of holding on to their money, and they were not willing to refinance. And people were defaulting, homes were being foreclosed, and there was a lot of just empty homes available for purchase, but there was really no liquidity for people to purchase them. Unfortunately, there was a lot of negative externalities causing our economy by this money lending practices, letting people borrow money when they really couldn't afford it. So the federal government had to intervene and implement different acts, such as the Housing and Economic Recovery Act of 2008, that kind of gave regulation through the Federal Housing Finance Agency. So mortgages were no longer given to people who could no longer afford them after that, and there was just more regulation. Also, there was the Foreclosure Prevention Act of 2008 that increased the Federal Housing Administration loan limits. So loans were given to at with lower rates and also a fixed rates, and also $3.92 billion were authorized through community development block grants to be given to be as provisions to communities that were hardly hit by foreclosures, and also to fund for housing counseling, and also for loan modifications, as these banks were no longer able to refinance these loans. So the federal government had to step in and provide funds for these loans to be modified and make them affordable for people to stay in their homes and not let their homes be foreclosed. These are my references. In conclusion, the private sector as well as the government failed to provide this stable economic environment for the public, for people trying to purchase their homes through, lack of regulation, through not very good practices through these lenders, as they were mostly motivated by profit and not really by whether these people are going to lose their homes. Things seem uh, economy seemed to be going well. Prices were going up. But these loans were given to people who could not really afford them, and then also these loans were the interest rates were not fixed. So when interest rates rose, so people could no longer afford this mortgages, and they lost their homes. They defaulted as the banks were not willing to refinance, and the government had to step in to kind of address these negative externalities and give some provisions through regulation and through funding in response to this housing crisis. Thank you very much for taking the time to view my presentation. Hope you all having a great weekend.